I'll hand over to the presenters.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Oh, okay, there we go. Yes, so yes, as he said, yes, this is the IVE project, the IVE project, supplementing intercultural awareness with the student-generated survey. So yeah, thank you all for coming. Before we begin, I do want to give a little plug to the JALT's Icicle SIG, the Intercultural Communication and Language Education SIG. We're having our first conference on July 10th. It's also on this Eventzilla platform. So it's online, obviously, and free. So if you're interested in intercultural communication, I encourage you to come. So my name is Andy Johnson. I'm at Future University Hakodate up in Hokkaido here. Yeah, I teach communication, and for about 2 years now, we've had all of our students, first-year students, using the IVE project as part of their first-year communication classes. Yes, Eric.
With Andy, also thank you very much to Matthew and to everyone for coming along. Eric Hagley is my name. I started the International Virtual Exchange project in about 2004. It's been going for quite some time. Andy's going to give you a little bit more information about it shortly. The picture of Australia is there. I am actually in Australia now, but I'm a research fellow at Horsey University, and looking forward to sharing with you about the International Virtual Exchange project and this wonderful addition to it, the student-generated survey.
Hi, I am Hülya Tuncer, and I'm a teacher trainer at English Language Teaching Department of Çukurova University, Turkey. I am from Turkey and I live in Turkey, in the southern part of Turkey. And my students and I joined that October exchange in 2020 of this IVE project. And today I'm going to talk about that student-generated survey experience of us. And thank you for attending.
Okay, thank you very much. So first, let me introduce the IVE project, the International Virtual Exchange Project. There's the URL. Maybe Eric can pop that link into the chat. Basically, it is for students like all over the world. It's designed to let them have authentic, like real communication with other students their age, other university students. It's mainly through text forums, but students can use audio, YouTube links. They can actually record videos of themselves talking. So yeah, they can communicate in various ways. And we want them just to exchange ideas and their culture and just learn more about each other. Yeah, experience that. This current exchange, we have about 5,000 students. And this exchange started last Monday, well, this like 5 or 6 days ago. Yeah, as you can see, 13 different countries from like all over the world. So it's a great variety of students joining. So yeah, really great right now. Yeah, it's, as Eric mentioned, he started this in 2004. And I think that was mainly like a couple of classes in a couple of different countries. But it started to expand with a Kakin grant in 2013. And slowly it's been building with like, about 800 students in 2015, but yeah, now we're like about 5,000. So it's a nice, yeah, nice build up there. Oh, okay, the UAE students, cool. The IVE project is free for university students. There's no cost at all to join, but it's teachers must enroll their students. Students cannot join by themselves. But we do give the teachers a lot of agency to set their own goals and set their own objectives. We understand that teachers have various classroom situations, so they're able to adapt the IVE to fit their needs as much as possible. So we have 2 exchanges each year. Each one lasts 8 weeks. So one is May to July, and another one in October to December. So this current one just began Monday. So yeah, this is a brand new one. Is just now starting. There are 2 core components of each exchange. We have a forum, a focused group discussion forum, and an open forum. So in the focus group discussions, we put the students into like smaller multicultural groups. I think this exchange is about 25 students per group. And maybe like a third of them are from Japan, a third are from Colombia, and the other third are a mix of students from various countries. So approximately anyway. There are 4 themes per for the 8-week topic in these group forums. So the first one this time is who we are, basically letting students learn about each other. Then they'll talk about their student lives and then the culture around them. And then we're trying a new one this time about gift culture and how gifts are used in their culture. So yes, so they have these focused topics to talk about. But also at the same time, they have this open forum. And this is like all 5,000 students can join and communicate together. And they have a lot of freedom to control the discussion topics. This time we're trying a new way with trying to help organize the themes. So with so many students, this can help students find an interesting discussion to join. But if you don't see a theme you like, you can just start anything you like. You can talk about anything, really. We also have a speaking forum here where we encourage students to actually record an audio or a video and have kind of asynchronous conversations, voice conversations. So that's something we're doing too. But those are the 2 core activities. There are also some supplemental things students can do to interact with others. The one we're talking about today is the student-generated survey. This began October 2018. In May 2019, we had this recipes from around the world, which is really cool. And October 2019, this your everyday photos, where there's different themes and students upload pictures they have taken about the theme, and you can kind of compare, the students from different cultures. But we're here to talk about the student-generated survey. So yes, I'll talk about an introduction to this. I'll show you some example questions, our objectives, how we actually create the survey, some of the summary graphs we create to help facilitate discussions in classrooms, some data, and some of the teacher experience. So let's jump into it. Basically, as the name implies, the student-generated survey is a survey of questions made by students for students. It's a very student-centric survey. We have 2 to 3 demographic questions, followed by 12 to 15 questions made by the students. So here is an example of one students made in the past year. Like, which do you prefer, online classes or face-to-face classes? So students think of questions that they want to ask. And this is a voluntary activity. It's non-core. students submit the questions they create through their teachers. So the teachers are there mainly for quality control, but we want the teachers to be a big part of this process, but they do have agency to use this survey and the question creation process as it best fits for them. So also taking the survey is voluntary. But if they do take it, they can compare the results on the survey by nationality. So it's really, I think, very interesting to see, and it leads to some very interesting discussions. So here is an example of one of the questions, and this is the example I gave before. Which do you prefer, online classes or face-to-face classes? And the Colombian students here, they really preferred the face-to-face, but like a third of Japanese students actually liked online classes more. So that was quite interesting to talk about with our students, and then asking them like, why do you think so? And yeah, so it seems like many students said that Colombians are more social. But yes, so this led to some nice discussion. Another question a student made a year ago or so was, how many brothers and sisters do you have? Very basic question, but it was, you could see that 0 or 1, these two colors, 2/3 of the Japanese students only had 0 or 1 sibling, but only about 1/3 of the Colombians had only 0 or 1. So no big deal. But then the following question was, how many children do you want? And it was flipped. A lot of the Colombians that I only want 0 or 1 child are of my own children. But the Japanese seem to want more children. So the combination of those two questions together led to some interesting discussion. This was another really great one for discussion. Which of these choices makes you the most happy? And the Colombian students overwhelmingly chose family. And so the Japanese students were like, wow. And then they saw their results, like, oh no, they're all over the place. Like they were like, what? I couldn't believe like over 10% said sleep made them the most happy. So that's like, I think maybe the Colombians and the other students were like, wow, very interesting. So yes, so those are some examples of questions the students have made. So our objectives in this survey are to let students have more control of their learning, which is actually an objective of the IVE project in general. We also want them to learn more about the survey creation process, how to make questions that people from a different culture can understand in the way you expect them to understand. So thinking about others. But the primary one is for students to gain a stronger understanding of cultural similarities and differences of all the participants in the IVE project. So yeah, and that involves like helping students overcome possible biases. So they may think that all Japanese are this way, or their students are this, Colombians are like this. But it really shows that cultures they consist of a collection of individuals with their own personalities and styles. And it's not just a stereotypical culture, that we are various people that create a singular culture, a national culture. And this also helps students become more aware of their own cultural identity. So I think this is what we want students to really gain from participating in the IVE student-generated survey. It's challenging to research this. So we basically want to know, does joining this survey help students learn more about other cultures and their own cultures? And if yeah, how does it do that? But it's really challenging to try to measure this because the IVE project, the forums, the core activities are the main, and this is the supplemental activity. So it's kind of hard to separate just this survey from the overall IVE project. Plus, each teacher is using this student-generated survey in their own way. So the two students might be using or creating questions, but having totally different experiences with how they engage in the survey. So these are some challenges we have to trying to research this. Until now, we basically have been using an end of exchange survey for collecting data. But this exchange, we're planning to have some teacher and student interviews so we can kind of dig a little deeper and learn more about what students are experiencing and how teachers are using it. So let me go into the creation process. Yes, so before the exchange begins, we make teachers aware of this student-generated survey. During the first 5 weeks, we let the teachers inform their students, and then the students are creating questions and the teachers submit that. Week 6 is when we actually make the survey. The first half, we have a voting period where teachers can vote and say, I think this is an interesting question. And the second half of the 6th week, we make the survey. And then during the last 2 weeks, the students can take the survey and discuss the results with their other classmates or other IVE members. So first, let me talk about this first 5-week period. So this is the IVE site. This is logged in as a student, and you can the core activities are up top, but they have this button here where they can get information about the student-generated survey, and it has just some basic information about what it is, so students can read that. There's the schedule is here and advice to how to make a good survey question. So yeah, so students have information, but in addition, for a teacher, when a teacher is logged in, they have an additional section about for the teacher information, teacher resource. And that has more than the students can see. In addition to what students can see, they have some previous survey data and some ideas for discussing the student-generated survey with the students. And this is a kind of a summary table within that resource. And there's a link here to click. And this is where teachers will submit their questions. And this is a database. And there's basically you just add an entry, and you just kind of, as this example shows, on the first line, type in the question that your student made and each of the choices on a separate line. So yeah. And like I said before, teachers have agency to work with students any way they like, and then the students they can input the students' questions here during the first 5 weeks. Yeah, and then the week 6 here, we kind of look through the questions. We made a voting system in 2019, so all of the teachers on the IVE project can just give it a thumbs up if they think it's an interesting question. And so after a few days of teacher voting, a few of us kind of select the questions we think would fit based on the number of votes. But we do try to have a balance. So we make sure that every teacher that has submitted to this gets a question in the survey. And we also have to make sure the questions are culturally sensitive. So we want to make sure, yeah, we want to take care of that. And there's also a little bit of editing we have to do to clean up the questions to make sure they are nothing ambiguous or easy to understand. So then we open up the survey to all the students. When we have these summary graphs, like I showed you before. So there's different ways that teachers can use this in your class. One of my favorite activities is to actually hide the labels and ask the students, which country do you think this represents? And I've had some very interesting discussions. This one's not too hard for the students to guess, but some questions the students really don't know. It's quite interesting. But you could also have students summarize the main ideas. For advanced students, have them ask why questions. So, and then think, why do you think something happened? Or, yeah, or you could make a worksheet yourself, like asking, find specific data. So that if you had a kind of more data-driven kind of class. So yeah, different things teachers can do to initiate, facilitate discussion with these graphs and using the data here. So I've had some really interesting discussions, and often after class or when I'm walking around the class, so I'll just talk to the students and they say really interesting things that they've learned from looking at this data. So just quickly, so this, we've had 5 iterations of the student-generated survey. Last year, for obvious reasons, was a bit strange with many students staying at home. But actually last year we had the most number of questions submitted, 117 questions submitted last spring, or that last May to July iteration, and 10 different students, but only from 2 different countries. So the first number is number of teachers, then it's number of countries. So it's no real pattern, but like the first year was all Japanese or teachers in Japan submitting. But yeah, slowly we're getting more and more teachers, but I hope we can improve this. Yeah, so it's interesting here. I think I mentioned before, we have an end of exchange survey for students to take. And then we have questions on that about their IVE exchange experience. And if they took the student-generated survey, what they thought about it. And this survey was in English, Japanese, and Spanish. So last October's exchange, we had 601 students take this survey. Of those, 443 did the student-generated survey. And of those 443, 96% of them were from Colombia, Japan, or Turkey. In this graph, I show that I kind of was curious how active the students were in the forums. So the IVE is eight weeks. So if they average 100 words a week or more, I kind of thought of them as more active students. And if they had less than 100 words per week, and Japan and Colombia were about the same. The Turkish students wrote about twice as much, which is interesting. But they had one teacher, and she was really great about encouraging them to be active on the IVE project. So, this is that self-reported data. Of the 442 students who actually took the student-generated survey, 76% of them said they looked at the results, but only 37% discussed the results with other students or other people. It was about like only a half who looked at it actually discussed it with others. The Japanese had the lowest reporting amount of discussion based on the data, which was unfortunate. So here I'm showing, I looked at the students who said they discussed the student-generated survey, they said yes, and those who said no, they didn't discuss the data. And of these 5 factors I'm showing here, like I'm more interested in the other countries now because of the IVE. Yeah, the students who discussed said reported slightly higher across the board, so that's promising. We need to look a little deeper to see how this affects, how significant this is. As I said, it's really hard to separate the IVE project, the main core activities, from this supplemental activity. But positive to see this. One of the other questions we asked was for those students who helped make questions, I had to think more carefully about the lives of the other countries' participants. This is a 1 to 6 scale, with 6 being I strongly believe this. The Turkish students were definitely the strongest here. They actually seem to put the most effort into thinking about the other participants. And Colombia did that the least. So that was interesting to see. A little bit of some qualitative data here. So these are some Japanese comments. I've translated them from using DeepL, but basically positive. The questions were all very interesting and it was fun to answer them. So I think part of the appeal of the student-generated survey is the students make the questions. And so they might think of questions that are more interesting to them. Yeah, and this one said it was interesting to see what people from all countries do when they wake up in the morning and what they have in common in their daily lives. So this really helped this student kind of understand how similar our lives are around the world. We're not so different after all. And this was interesting. The translation is not the best, but I think there are differences in the lives of individuals, but I also thought that there are cultural differences in the differences. It was interesting to see these differences. So I think the translation's a little off, but I think you can kind of get the gist that we expect some individuality of the students, but even with that, there was cultural differences. And then some Colombians, some of their remarks were, there was a question about being if you were a superhero, what superhero power would you have? And this got lots of buzz. People really like talking about this. So yeah, he really liked this one, really liked that. But this was not so positive. The student said it was a little long on the personal side and usually a little boring, but it asked interesting questions. So yeah, so some students, it wasn't all rosy comments. But yeah, and this one super important because we can visualize ourselves. So I think this referring to the summary graphs, I think that really helped and facilitate discussion. So here, these are some of the Colombian responses in the Japanese. Now I'll kind of let Hülya take over and talk about her experience from the teacher perspective. Yes.
Yeah. Now I think you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes, what about my teacher? I mean, teacher perspective and what I experienced. So I said at the beginning of the presentation that my students and I joined that October exchange with nearly 70 volunteering students. I said volunteering because I was teaching both second and third year English language teaching department students, and I was giving mostly the literature courses. So from both groups, we had 70 volunteering students. And after getting used to the system, after getting used to the IVE project and the website, and it took maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I informed the students about this student-generated survey, and I gave the instructions about that. So 45 of them submitted their questions, and this was an individual submission. It wasn't a pair work or a group work. And during this process, what we experienced, they tried to prepare their own multiple choice questions. And before that, I set the deadline in order to submit their questions, in order to give them some adequate feedback, to add or omit those options, and then to resubmit and finalize the questions. Because at the end, I was going to submit all of those questions to the IVE website. So most of my students submitted more than 2 questions, and some of them wrote nearly 8 also. And there were some similar questions among them. So I tried to combine their options. And some of the students, this was one of the challenging points maybe for my students, because some of them wrote open-ended ones. Although they were given the instructions, although I informed them, they wrote some open-ended ones. So what happened to those open-ended questions? I informed them that they can use those open-ended questions easily in that open forum or group discussion forum on that IVE website. And majority of their questions began with, what is your favorite? And so on, and if question. These were the things that were favorites in a way by my students. So we can check some of those examples. First one, if you were to choose one of the superpowers below, which one would you choose? So the options focus on flying, being invisible, teleporting, controlling objects with your mind, stopping the time, time traveling, and immortality. And next one focuses on what they value most in their lives. So it can be money, family, health, friends, work, or religion. And the last example touches upon that favorite indoor activity. Cooking, reading a book, watching Netflix, playing board games with family or friends, playing computer games, or just sleeping and resting. During this student-generated process, during the collection or submission, as a teacher, I noticed the importance of feedback once. Yes, as teachers, we need to provide some feedback to our students. But during this process, this situation made me feel that importance of that feedback. Since I try to give that prompt feedback to my students, this situation kept them on the track. So they felt that, yes, this process is important and my questions are being read by my teacher, and my teacher provides me prompt feedback. So they need to do everything they can, or best they can. And one another thing is about asking good questions. I said that my students are prospective English language teachers. So asking good questions, this is a very important skill for them. They are going to prepare exam questions. They are going to prepare some multiple choice questions. So they need to be ready for that. And while preparing those questions, they needed to think about the others. I mean, other countries, other cultures, all those participants within this IVE project. So critical thinking is an important element while preparing all those questions. And it is included among the 21st century skills. So at the end of this phase, I mean, preparation and then the submission, my students reflected that, like Andy mentioned before, to make those questions, they had to think more carefully about the lives of other countries' participants. They try to think of some interesting questions that might attract the attention of the other students or other participants. So since they helped make the questions, since they tried hard to form all those questions, then as a result of that, they try to take part in the survey more carefully and much more eager, because they needed to find out whether their questions were approved, whether some similar questions might appear within that student-generated survey. So this might create a sense of belonging to the group, belonging to that IVE project, and a sense of ownership, because they felt that they have a role within this project, and they like that. So these are some example statements at the end of IVE project. I mean, at the end of those 2 months, we asked them some open-ended questions. We asked about their feelings about both IVE and about student-generated survey. So first one, I think it was a great opportunity for us to ask others what we wanted and answer the questions what other students wanted. The keyword is here, I mean, wonder, because this creates a kind of curiosity. Yes, they try to ask questions, but what about the other students? What kind of questions the other students ask? And second one, all questions were good to answer, and also it was fun to look at the results and make inferences. So fun and making inferences, these were all, I mean, they liked making inferences based upon those questions. And another one, I liked it. There should be more of them, because students understand students better. So we can easily focus on the last part of this statement. Students understand students better. We said that they try to have a kind of ownership, and they felt that these questions were not prepared by teachers. They can have all those questions, and they can have those exams or questionnaires, but this one is different because they feel that this was prepared by students, so they can understand my feelings. This is the thing that student focused on. And it was the most cheerful survey I have ever taken. The questions were funny and nice. While answering them, I felt happy. Thanks to everyone who prepared this survey. By looking at all those sentences, you can easily sense how my student felt. So cheerful, funny, nice, happy, thanks. All of these words make you think that they really enjoyed. They really felt that happiness as a result of that. And the questions displayed how technology captured our lives and how we all resemble each other in our lifestyle. Like Andy mentioned, they can easily see the similarities among those nationalities or cultures. So this statement focuses on technology and how technology dominates our lives. So we can easily use these things for discussion as a discussion point in our class. So the questions were really realistic, and I saw many similarities between the other nationalities. This one is closely related to the previous one in terms of seeing those similarities and being a realist one. And another one, I really had fun observing what students of other countries voted, and I made a comparison with ours. Sometimes I was surprised and I laughed time to time. For example, Turkey is the only country who chose the science as the most trusted, while all the other countries chose yourself as the most trusted. So this one focuses on one specific item, and of course we can understand that that student found that as an interest point. So making that comparison and looking at those, dominant ones, dominant choices. The most surprising thing is to check the phone firstly when the students wake up. We should drink water for our health as soon as we wake up. So again, focusing on one specific item. He thinks that it's a surprising thing. And he also adds that we should drink water instead of doing that. So sometimes we can have such statements based upon that and going one step further. So last two statements focuses on student-generated survey, and you can understand that feeling again once more. Student-made surveys give us a voice and understand that we have the same idea about many things. And I like that it was student-generated. I also like that we could see the other responses at the end, so we can compare the answers of different cultures. So this was my experience with all my Turkish students. I'd like to say thank you once more to Eric and Andy for providing such opportunities to language teachers all around the world. And I'd like to thank you all for attending. And Andy might go on now.
Yes, thank you very much, Hülya. Yes, so if any of you are interested in joining the IVE project, it's still the end of the very first week, so you can email Eric at iveproject.org@gmail.com, and there's the link there. So Eric, I'm sure, is happy to talk to you after this. And this is a part of a Kaken grant, so we thank the Japanese government for their support. And if you have any questions, yeah, we'll open it up for questions now. And if you want to contact us, here are our emails, and I guess we could put that into the chat as well. Yeah, so if you want to turn your microphones on in this talk, or if you want to write in the chat, we only have 2 minutes left. Yeah, the floor is open.
Yeah, thank you everyone for introducing your project to us. And yeah, we don't have any sessions in here after this one, so we have some flexibility in time if you want to spend some more time speaking.
Well, I have one question.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. I just had a question about the timing of the sessions, sort of. The first one was from May to July, and then the second one was October to December. And the Japanese school year, for us, we're on the quarter system, so it would go from April to June and then June to August. In that case, do the students have to participate throughout the whole session, or can they choose to come in the middle? Or
we hope they do, because they're in the small groups for the group forum. But this is a challenge we have because we have students from around the world, and various countries have different periods of when the school semesters begin and end. So it is challenging. So we do have this issue. So yeah, we like it if students can join for the whole 8 weeks. I don't know if some students could join maybe after the semester or the term finishes. I don't know.
okay, thank you.
Can I ask you, Fujishima Sensei, are all the courses in the quarter semester system?
Quarter system, unfortunately, yes, but some of our classes run for the 2 quarters. But we have some that just run for just 1 quarter for 8 weeks. And so that makes it kind of challenging. But, you know, I think if we could encourage students to continue and let them know that we will monitor them, you know, I think this looks so interesting. I think that they would just still want to participate even though the school, that their course term is finished, you know.
We do find that. if we look at the October through to December exchange, we saw students interacting with each other right up through to the end of February, even though grades and everything had finished. So what you say is true. It really is quite an amazing project, I think. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you can find a way. Yeah, that'd be great to have you join.
Well, my colleague Susan Mackey, she's not here right now, but she is very interested in implementing it in her course, and we're kind of coordinating our courses. So I hope that we can work together. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yes, we hope to see you.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah.
Susan.
Susan Mackey, she may have contacted you already.
Yeah, she is actually participating in the present exchange as an observer.
Okay.
So she's very very involved. It's good to see.
I think I saw her name in the list in the person.
Yeah, she may have had to leave early, but yeah, definitely. Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, if there aren't any other questions, I mean, we have gone a couple minutes over, but as Matthew has said, we're not being kicked out.
No, that's fine. Take your time. Yeah, no problem.
But I guess people do have other sessions to attend. Yeah. Thank you all very much for coming. We really appreciate it. And yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy, for doing this too.
My
Andy
pleasure.
Johnson has certainly been a driving force behind this student-generated survey, and it's grown and become an integral part of the International Virtual Exchange project, which I'm really happy about. It's really good. Thank you, Andy.
Well, thank you, Eric. Yes, you've made it possible.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then. Thank you all.
Okay, I'll bring it into the recording now. Okay, so I'll hit the stop button now.
Okay.